I have a question.
Okay.
So me and Jen literally have like the same thing.
Okay.
We were North and South Korea since we
I'll see if you're right.
together.
It's okay, don't worry. Hey, this isn't going to fail anybody unless you didn't do it. Brooke, can you sneak out? Okay. All right. Shh, here we go. It's recording. Hey, it is recording. Okay, tell us what Harry Truman was in 1949, my man.
Oh, he started out his second term as president, and it was after the big upset over Thomas Dewey, where they did the Dewey defeats Truman or whatever in the paper. And only one of his fair deal bills was passed, which was the Housing Act of 1949. And he announced that on September 23rd, 1949, that the Soviet Union had detonated their atomic bomb.
Okay, that's very good. He had a little more. Basically, the significance is when he started his second term, and you said that, defeating Thomas Dewey in that famous picture. He also, during his second term, just in addition, brought the United States into the Korean conflict. So that is very good. Nice hand for Keller. Okay, Doris Day.
Alright, in 1949, Doris Day was a popular movie star and singer, and she starred in her first movie was Romance on the Seas in 1949.
That's right. How about a nice hand there? The only thing I would add on that is that she was born in 1924. You didn't have to put that. I'm just telling you. And she became a singing and touring star with the Les Brown Band at the age of 16. But as he said, she made her first movie and became a very popular movie star and singer in 1949. Doris Day. Okay, Mason, you have Red China.
I was done before class for the record.
That away, as long as you're done by right now.
Alright. So, after World War II, China had been at war in a civil war between the Communist and Nationalist parties, but on October 1st, 1949, that civil war ended and began the reign of Red China, which was communist-controlled China, and that meant that diplomatic ties between the U.S. and China would be strained until communist China fell.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, actually, it's when the communists took control of China after that civil war that he talked about. Anybody know who gave the name China, Red China? Do you know that, first of all, who gave him the name? The United States did, to indicate that they were communists. So people started calling them Red China, and that's what the significance of that name from Billy Joel's song. Very good, Mason, yeah. Hey, Johnny Ray, Johnny Ray. Maybe listening up here, might have a quiz.
Johnny Ray, he went to Hollywood in 1949 to act. He found odd jobs as bartending and playing piano in bars. He moved to Detroit and worked as a disc jockey for a little bar there. And Columbia Records gave him a chance to sing and play, and he was the only white artist on the Oki Records R&B roster. Oki Records is just kind of a branch off of Columbia Records.
Anything else significant about him? My hearing's bad, but I'm not sure. Did you say that he was deaf?
No.
He was partially deaf. And his number one hit was a song called Cry, and he actually cried during performing the song, right?
Yeah.
Okay, any other songs? Did you have any other songs he sang?
Whiskey and Gin and Till They Say Goodbye. A couple of the big ones.
Okay, in 1950, his other hit songs were The Little White Cloud That Cried, he was into crying, I guess, and Walking in the Rain. But Johnny Ray was a partially deaf singer who hit number one with the song called Cry, which made him a real star in those particular years. So, very good, all right. South Pacific. Let's see now. Let's see what this is. This might be good. Will the Thrill.
Alright, so the South Pacific, it was a musical composed by Richard Rodgers and with lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein II and a book by Hammerstein and Joshua Wilson. The work premiered in 1949 on Broadway and was an immediate hit, ran for nearly 2,000 performances. And the plot of the musical was based on James A. Chandler's Pulitzer Prize-winning 1947 book, Tales of the South Pacific. It combines elements of both of these stories, and they were primarily centered on racism.
I have nothing to add. It was that good. That away well. Walter Winchell. That was very good, Will.
Walter Winchell. He was a top gossip reporter who had a newspaper column and a radio show that he could pretty much make or break any celebrity there was or any person. What else did I write down? The reports that you better read this. He was viewed by the authorities as one of the nation's most public days makers, so I guess. And then his news reports always were very opinionated, which brought him lots of admirers and a lot of people who really didn't like him either. So, and then he attracted millions of people. And then he did a Broadway idiom in which he wrote and spoke. So, yeah.
Very
I got it.
excellent. You know, he was, you ever heard of Howard Stern?
Yeah.
He was kind of Howard Stern of his times. Very good there. Yeah, he did, a lot of people didn't like him. He would, if he said something bad about you as a celebrity, you might be done. So very good, Walter Winchell. This is kind of a heavy-duty topic here for you, Cody. Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah, DiMaggio.
What was the significance of the year?
Well, he played for the Yankees, and then he got a heel injury early on in the season and was out for 3 months. And he came back and had one of the greatest seasons he's had when he came back. And then the Yankees ended up making it to the World Series that year against the Dodgers, but DiMaggio had one of the worst World Series in history. But they ended up winning it, and that started their streak of 5 World Series they won in a row.
Yeah, very good. Now, I'm going to add a little bit here. It isn't anything that he didn't get, but I still think it's amazing. And I've said this before, Joe DiMaggio was a player that got a base hit in 56 straight games. That means in 56 games in a row, he got at least one hit. That's still a major league record. That tells you how significant that was, especially with the performance-enhancing drugs players are using and stuff now. A heck of a record to get a hit in 56. He also married Marilyn Monroe in 1954, and the marriage only lasted 9 months. But anyway, he was a very good baseball player. Maybe the greatest baseball player in the history of Major League Baseball, in some people's opinions. So very good. Joe DiMaggio. Okay, that cleans up 1949. We'll move on to 1950. This should be fairly easy for you, but Joe McCartney. And that was Shriver, right? We know that McCartney was a senator from Wisconsin. We know he chaired the Senate Committee on Governmental Operations. He ended up going against the Army, remember the Army versus McCarthy Senate hearings and got crushed. That was the significance of 1950. Okay, are you guys talking while I'm talking by chance? Chances are. Now, so we'll kind of go from there. So who has Richard Nixon? Is that you, Bailey? No, because we went back. That would be Sierra, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he was a member, we'll talk about this later, but he was a member of the House of Representatives from California when he became involved in the trial of a guy named Alger Hiss, who he accused of being a communist and a spy in the United States. And Nixon presented evidence that helped prove Hiss was guilty in 1950. This is prior to becoming vice president. And Hiss actually had microfilm hidden in pumpkins on his farm. And this was a big deal. And when Nixon in 1950, as a United States member of the House, when he exposed Alger Hiss as a spy, this really boosted his popularity and really led to his vice presidential nominations in 52 and 56 and then eventually the presidency. But that's where he got his start. Interesting story, and we'll talk more about that when we get into Nixon. Okay, who has Studebaker? Is that you, Nibeth? Okay, girl, go crazy. Studebaker. Not the Edsel, but anyway.
Well, Studebaker introduced the iconic bullet nose look, and it was one of the most successful models in terms of the sale. It came in 3 different sizes: Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. The founders were the Studebaker brothers, and the model was identical to the 1947-1949 model, except it had a minor trim and vertical taillights. And after his sales, his market share reached a new high of 4.25%, and then after that, he could claim to be America's most successful independent vehicle maker.
All right, well, good. That was very good. As she said, it had a torpedo front. People used to joke that when the car went down the street, it looked like it was going backwards because nobody was used to that bullet front. They were used to the kind of bullet back of a car. If you look at cars in that era, it looked like the back end of the car was kind of looked like a bullet. This one had the front, and everybody thought it was, they going, hey, that car is going down the street backwards. They used to say that all the time. Actually, the Studebaker company went out of business in 1966, so they had a pretty good run, 16 years, but they were no, GMC, Ford Motor Company, etc. Very good. Television. And here he is. Bookless in Orland.
Still got it done.
Attaboy.
Okay, there's a lot of things for television in 1950. The first televised report of general election results in the UK. The first broadcast station in Mexico City, Mexico, and a broadcast station in Brazil. And then also the first BBC television broadcast from an aircraft. That was pretty cool. And then the most significant is CBS's color television system was approved.
Yep, very good. Yeah, very good. We'll mention this when we get into the election of 1960, but the difference between people that had, first television came out in the 40s, and it was like 10 inches. It had a great big console, like great big piece of furniture with a 10-inch screen in it. They're pretty hot to do. Well, anyway, you're going to see a huge difference between the amount of Americans that have televisions in the 1950s even compared to the 1960s, which leads to significance of the great debate between Nixon and Kennedy. But anyway, color was introduced in 1951, but very few people had color television sets till later on because they just couldn't afford them and whatever. So that was very good. Okay, who has North Korea and South Korea? Okay, you can both go up at the same time because it's basically the same thing. And you can split up your discussion. Very good, girls.
Okay, on June 25th, 1950, the Korean War, Korean conflict kind of started. It started when around 75,000 North Korean soldiers surprised the southern port across the 38th parallel. And this was the boundary between communist North Korea and Western Republic of South Korea. The premier of North Korea at the time was Kim Il-sung, so he had a really big part in that. Yep. So in other words, South Korea had officially been invaded by the North in 1950. Just kind of before it started.
Yeah, it's a lot about what we talked about, right, the Korean War. But yeah, very good. North Korea, South Korea, when Billy Joel put this together, he wanted to emphasize the Korean conflict. So very good, girls, yeah. All right, who has Marilyn Monroe? Courtney, all right. Tell us what you know about this gal in 1950.
So, in 1950, Monroe got her first serious acting job in the movie The Asphalt Jungle, and her role as Angela Finlay was small but really crucial to her career. And it was her first role as like a serious actress, and it got her a lot of attention. And like in the same year, she impressed audiences and critics so much that she got another role in All About Eve. And she soon became one of Hollywood's most popular actresses, and she's still an icon today. So 1950 was kind of just the year that the world discovered her.
Very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, she was, we'll talk about her later too, but she was really America's first sex symbol movie star, so to speak. She was on the cover of the first ever Playboy magazine. If you had one of those right now, an original, would be worth thousands of dollars. Matter of fact, I saw one in Las Vegas many years ago at a collector's shop. First edition, first printing with Joe DiMaggio's signature on the front. And it went for big bucks. I mean, big bucks. She married Joe DiMaggio, which she told you about. They divorced. She married a playwright by the name of Arthur Miller, which some of you maybe know about. She also was rumored to have relationships with President John F. Kennedy, or his brother Robert F. Kennedy, a mafia boss, Joe Giancana. She was a very unstable little gal. Took a lot of drugs during her life and actually died under suspicious circumstances, according to some, when she was just 36 years old. We'll talk all about her when we get into the 60s. But she made her start, Courtney, very good. Her start happened in 1950. All right, 1951, Rosenbergs.
Is it Rosen or Rosen?
Rosenbergs.
Okay. All right.
It's okay.
Okay, so on March 6th of 51, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, their trial began, I guess, so to speak, and they were being accused of selling nuclear secrets to the Russians. And they couldn't actually charge them as treason because we weren't at war with Soviet Union. So then David Greenglass worked at Los Alamos, where America had developed the atomic bomb, and Julius was his brother-in-law, which means Ethel his brother or sister. And he was part of the American Communist Party, and he had been fired from his job during the Red Scare. And so Rosenberg and asked Greenglass to pass highly confidential instructions about the atomic weapon to the Soviet Union, and Harry Gold was assisting him. And it allowed Russia to explode their first atomic bomb and then effectively start the Cold War in '49. So then that was 2 years earlier. And so then the trial finally ended a month later on April 4th, and they had convictions for all the defendants. So Mr. and Mrs. Rosenberg were sentenced to death row on April 6th. And then Morton Sorbell, who was a helper, like he wasn't too big, but he got 30-year sentence. And then Mr. Greenglass received 15 years for being involved. And then actually the Rosenbergs were offered a deal that if they would just admit that they were guilty, then they wouldn't be killed. But instead they were refused and they were executed.
That's very good, yeah. Nice job. Very good. Yeah, they were offered an opportunity, but they would not admit guilt. Sometimes it's better to take your chances, but they chose not to. Okay, who has H-bomb? H-bomb, 1951. See, now listen, because there might be a difference here between something.
I go.
Go ahead.
Okay. The U.S. detonated this bomb on an island in the Pacific. This bomb was more powerful than the Russian A-bomb was, and the Russian A-bomb is what convinced the U.S. to proceed with the H-bomb. This type of bomb was a hydrogen isotopes, which is fused in helium, which releases energy. Edward Teller was the person who explored this idea during the Manhattan Project. There were people, like for example, his name was Enrico Fermi, that didn't support it because they didn't know its limit, and so they didn't know what kind of destruction that it would do. Since the Cold War was escalating, they went forth with it, and so they worked on it in South Carolina.
That's very good. Nice job. And you know the difference, did you catch the difference? We dropped an atomic bomb, an A-bomb, on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but the hydrogen bomb was more powerful, and the United States exploded the first H-bomb, and then the Soviet Union exploded their version, so it just became a nuclear arms buildup, which is very, very good. Okay, Sugar Ray.
On September 12, 1951, Sugar Ray Robinson, former middleweight boxing champion, wins back the belt. He defeated Randy Turbin at the Polo Grounds in New York City in front of 61,370 spectators. He was considered the best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing history. And then 2 months prior, he had fought the guy who was Randy Turbin, and he lost to him. And so then it was a 15-round decision in London, and that caused him to lose the belt. And then he requested a rematch, and then that gave him the chance to win back the belt. And General Douglas MacArthur and other stars attended the fight, and Robinson trained hard and didn't want to underestimate his opponent again. And he dominated the fight and won the first 8 rounds. And then in the 9th, Turbin fought back and won that. And then in the 10th round, it was 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes into the fight, and the referee stopped it.
Yeah, that's very good. Nice job. Sugar Ray Robinson was the first boxer that had a bit of a personality. People liked him. He was popular. He wasn't quite as brash as Muhammad Ali. But have you ever heard of Sugar Ray Leonard that fought later in the 80s and 90s? He kind of took the Sugar Ray name, but Sugar Ray lost that fight. He underestimated his opponent. He fought hard, got back, and he became a champion again. He was kind of our first real popular, personable boxing champion. Okay, Panmunjom Jom there, dear.
Okay, so I did Panmunjom in 1951, and I'll just read it. Although it might sound like it, Panmunjom is not a Chinese food. It's actually a village located in the 30th parallel between North and South Korea. In 1951, peace negotiations started in Panmunjom between North Korea, the Soviet Union, and China. The biggest debates were over borderlands and prisoners of war. These peace talks happened while some of the most brutal fighting occurred. Millions of men were killed during the 25-month period of peace talks. The peace talks were described as having all the speed of a stiff concrete mix. So they went really slow. And they lasted for so long because neither side really wanted to give the enemy an advantage.
That's very good. Very good. Nice job. And we talked about that a little bit, about the peace negotiations there. And like she mentioned, a lot of soldiers were killed during that time. It was a very slow process. And also as a result of the Panmunjom negotiations, exchanged prisoners of war resulted. So that's very good. Brando.
Marlon Brando was a legendary actor, and in 1951 he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in A Streetcar Named Desire. That's all I have.
That's pretty much it. Nice job. He was a top movie actor. He was, if you know Brando, he had a kind of a brooding and mumbling acting style. He was kind of had that appearance. He received an Academy Award for his role in On the Waterfront, and that brought him to be a top box office draw. And later, if you ever watched, anybody ever watched, you're too young, but your parents might have, the Godfather movie series? He was the star.